Hi everyone, and welcome back to Constant Writers, the podcast where I talk to indie horror authors about all things to do with their work and, of course, Stephen King. My name is Dave Musson. I'm at Dave Musson on Instagram. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. If you haven't listened to the other episodes in this series yet, do go and check those out as well, because I really think you'll enjoy them. But stick around for this episode, because this time around I'm talking to my friend and yours, the excellent Jason Pellegrini. So I chat to Jason about reading, about writing, about Stephen King. He's a big fan of Stephen King, as you're going to find out. And then we go in depth on Jason's King book of choice, which is the classic 1975 novel, Salem's Lot. So do stick around for that. Hope you enjoy this conversation. Check out Jason's work. Do go and pick up some of his work. And hey, if you're looking to support other people as well, you can sign up to my mailing list. You can pick up my copy of the Ultimate Stephen King quiz book as well. But for now, it's all about Jason Pellegrini, so stick around for a great conversation, and I'll be back right at the end just to say bye-bye. Jason, welcome to Constant Writers. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast, but they're usually Stephen King ones, so I'm well versed in the combos.
Yeah, well, definitely, and it's great to have you on. And you're right, we do have plenty of Stephen King stuff to get through. It is a Stephen King channel after all. But I wanted to start by really talking about you and your writing, because you've carved a name for yourself over the last couple of years and put out some really great pieces of work. I guess to start, like, let's go back to the start. So tell me a bit about how you got into reading and writing. Like, where did all this come from? What's your writer's origin story, as it were?
Well, I've always been the creative type. Just always had like an overactive imagination. My my mom said I used to lie like crazy and for like no reason when I was a little kid. Um, so I guess I put that to good use. But it was never something really that was on my radar. I did a creative writing course in college. But even then it was half-assing stuff though. It wasn't getting B's, that's pretty good for just coming up with something on the fly, just to have my paper done. I always wanted to be a musician. So the artistic stuff, creativity was always in me. I'm pretty good at drawing. But it had to be around 2009. A friend of mine, he released a book, little plug for him, Michael Sombert, The Neverenders. He had just released it, and I picked it up just to support him. I didn't even really read back then. I think the only book I had read since high school was like Shadows of the Empire. So I had the book though. So, I was working at like a gas station at the time. So I had a lot of downtime. So I was like, I'm just going to, read it. I have it. So I'm reading it, and while I'm reading it, I'm like, I had all these, I've always had like ideas, like maybe like me and my friends tried to write like screenplays before. And stuff. And I've always had like little ideas and nuggets there. I'm like, maybe I can do this. So it wasn't even like something like I thrive to do. Like it's just always the creative drive in me, I guess. It's always drives me.
Yeah.
I thrive off creativity. So it's like I have all these ideas. Let me go with that. So I tinkered and I tried some stuff out. Nothing that really I would ever have put out at the time. But then I felt comfortable that ideas kept coming to me and all that stuff. So I eventually started writing what would end up being my first novel. Patient was like comfortable enough that I wasn't writing crap. You're not gonna release an album 10 minutes after you pick up a guitar and you can't play like a G chord correctly.
Yeah.
So that's really it. I mean, I just supporting a friend, and like I've always wanted to be creative, and that's really it. I don't know if that's like I know Stephen King's story he always had it in him.
Yeah.
But some people are like drawn to it. It was never something really I was like drawn to, but something I love doing because I love being creative.
Yeah. No, I get that totally. I understand that. A lot of my own hobbies are quite creative as well. I mean, similar to you, I play music and done various podcasts and stuff, and sort of got into giving writing a go the last couple of years, really. So, I mean, when you actually got to that point where you felt confident enough in your writing to do something, like what was that all you needed to finally sort of
put it out there for other people to read, or did you submit to like anthologies first? Like what was the final thing that pushed you over to actually put something out there for the world to look at?
I mean, it was always my intention, as long as I felt that maybe, as long as I felt confident, I meant, that I had something readable. I don't want to say I have something great, but definitely something readable that's not trash. I just felt comfortable with the story I was writing. You know, it took a lot of, I think the replacement took maybe 4 years from the day I created the files to, I think, almost 4 years to the date from the creation of the file to release date. A lot of stop and go, a lot of going back, a lot of learning, because I was still very much learning, very different from my second, go with my second book. I never really had any intentions of like seeking anyone out or doing the anthology thing. I was always like, if I can do this, I'm gonna do it on my own, because I'm not really into the whole mentality of waiting for someone.
Yeah.
You know, I by the time the replacement was done, I was like, I have something good. At least story wise, we'll get into how I feel about my actual on the page writing, maybe a little bit. But it wasn't even a question of submitting or anything. It was just like, I'm gonna do this on my own. I'm gonna go, and because I feel comfortable with what I have.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And since then, you mentioned the replacement, but looking at some of your titles of some of your other releases, you've got Booth, you've got The Cool Kids, which I read recently and enjoyed, and If I Could Have Lived Another Day, which is actually my current read as we sit and record this. It's making me feel a lot of emotions, but it's great. I mean, I was going to ask you to tell me a bit about your style, but you just hinted as well, like your thoughts on your own writing. So let's combine the two. Like, give me a bit of a pitch for your style of writing, but also now you're a few years in and a few releases in, like if you can put a bit of distance between you and your own writing and look back at it, like how do you feel about how it's coming out on the page?
The replacement, I'm very proud of the replacement. Now I'm really deep into a really large scale project for my upcoming one, which whatever that will be.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of look back on, I haven't actually opened the book and read what's in the replacement, but when I look back at it, like some things, like I know there's just stuff I would probably cringe, but I know there's some stuff that I was like, I would do that differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the evolution of the Beast. I always use Stephen King as comparisons, so it's just coincidence that we're. But I always wonder, when he was doing Doctor Sleep, he mentioned he'd gone back and he read The Shining. So I wonder how, what were his thoughts when he was reading The Shining? Like, this is crap. As far as like my style, yeah, I mean, it's just an evolution. Like, I definitely have my go-tos, kind of like any author, like their go-to tropes or their, what they focus on. I'm very big into character development. As far as like genre style, another thing I learned from Stephen King, probably one of the most important things is don't get pigeonholed, because my first book was a thriller, and you're reading my latest one, which was 2019 now, and it's pretty much a love story about grief.
Mm.
And dealing with grief, and they can be farther from one another. And if I go over things I have in my mind, whether it's at the forefront or like on the back burner for a later date, none of them are thrillers. Maybe I have one thriller left in me. So I didn't want to be pigeonholed as like a thriller writer just because I wrote a thriller.
Yeah,
because I'm just gonna produce crap, or I'm just not gonna produce anything at all. So if I don't ever want to force anything. If like an idea comes and like it just sits there floating and nothing comes of it, it's gonna float away. If something comes along and I build off that, I'm gonna go with that. I don't care if it's a love story. I don't care if it's the current one's horror. My last one's love story. Booth, which was my second one, was a sci-fi historical thriller, hybrid. So I'm not really into the pigeonhole thing, and that's King's big thing was like from The Shining to The Green Mile to you know.
I mean, I feel like from the stuff of yours I've read, there's definitely there's a warmth there. There's like a real personable quality, a real sort of like, I'm telling you this story, come and sit down and listen to it kind of thing, which again feels quite Kingian in many ways. It's got, you've got that ability to hook me in as a reader, and there's enough humanity through in there that sort of just really keeps me engaged throughout. Like, is that something you've picked up from King, or is that just a reflection of your personality as well, or is it a bit of both?
Well, Stephen King is my hands down my biggest influence. Like, I'm not gonna lie about it. But to say that I'm drawing obviously I'm drawing influences from him because it's what I read the most. But I've always said I write what I like to read, and I like to read Stephen King. So I'm pouring in I'm putting on page what I want to contribute. It just so happens that Stephen King and what I want to write are very linked, very close together. I mean, it's the reason why I'm drawing to Stephen King. So obviously when I write, I'm going to write things that are similar to him. And not to say like I've learned plenty from him, but I just pour me. Like it goes back to like writing whatever the story comes to mind is. It's I'm going to put on the page whatever I feel fits the story, whether it's I've written some grotesque things and I've written some very, very warm things. It's whatever the story needs. I'm not going to, again, don't be pigeonholed by, I can't have this in my story because, I only write love stories and, wish you this, or I only write horror. I mean, there's love stories and plenty of horror.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to go where the story wants it to go, I guess. So
God. No. Character development is my biggest thing, and I think I might have mentioned that.
Yeah,
a few minutes ago. Humans experience every emotion across the board. I don't care if you're being chased by a monster. Is your wife being chased by a monster too? And why is it so important? I'm more believing in creating the characters and making people care about what they're reading. One of the my biggest gripe for some horror is that it's so focused on the horror aspect that, like, I read something that pops off the page, I'm like, oh, that's cool, or but like I don't really care about it. So it ends up being like a 2.5, 3-star read because like I didn't care. To me, it's all about the characters, and that's something I definitely got from King. But again, that's why I love King. Like you said, I'm writing what I want to read, and I want to care about my characters. I always say, if I pointed to you on the street and said, "Oh, that person down to a stranger, that person has cancer," you'd be like, "Oh, that's really terrible." But God forbid, knock on wood, somebody you care about gets cancer, that's going to destroy you. It's the same thing. I always go to the cancer. I should say married. The other person's getting married. That's nice. But if it's like your sister or somebody you really care, you always got to make the connection. And to me, that is like a major driving force for kind of what got me on this tangent. But
no, I get it. It's just nice to hear people sort of working out what it is that makes them tick as well. So yeah, I appreciate that. You mentioned you are working on something at the moment. Like, how much more are you happy to talk about that?
So this was actually my my first endeavor into writing. So like I said, me and my friends we were like toying with like the idea of like writing screenplays. We really we tried writing some comedy about like, it was real crap. I think it was like people who had to like compete at a beer pong tournament to get their like earn tax money for like their the house they inherited from the grand. It was obnoxious. It was like doing that American Pie like beer movie and all that stuff. While I was doing that, I was like, oh, what if I came up with these other ideas, kind of like the idea that ended up being The Replacement. But also had an idea about like these kids on like a road trip, stopping at a ghost town, California. California is infamous for ghost towns from the mining towns from the gold rush. So they stay there the night, and it ends up the town's infested by vampires. That's really all I had. So when I wanted to start writing, I said I'm gonna try that one out. I wrote it, like earlier, I wrote the whole thing from start to finish, and at the time I said, well, the market's flooded with vampire stuff, so I'm just go on to something else. In hindsight, it was not something that I'm lucky never got released. It wasn't the ideas was there. It just what was on the page wasn't good. Because I was, like I said, I picked up the guitar like 2 minutes ago, and now I'm trying to put out an album.
Yeah.
So the idea was stuck to me. Like I said, the story was there. I loved it. So I said, like, when the pandemic hit, I had a lot of time to write, which I didn't take advantage of, but I did try to sit down. And that idea kept coming back to me. So I opened up a new file and I said, I'm going to use the old manuscript as like a very detailed outline, which funny enough, 12 years later, 13 years later, I still remember almost every detail of what, because I haven't gone back to that manuscript.
Yeah.
I remember the points. So that's how much it stuck with me. I remember everything. So I've been building off of what I had. And yeah, I didn't do much during the pandemic, but suddenly, like when the world opens up again, I'm inspired to write. So I've been writing a lot. Like I'm worried about how much I'm writing, because right now I'm over 200,000 words.
Wow.
And I might be over the halfway mark.
Oh wow.
I don't know. Like it's going to be probably close to 500,000 words. So I'll have to do some heavy duty editing and formatting when I actually turn it into the format to be printed.
Mm-hmm.
It's little things like shrinking fonts and stuff, I can make it. But I think it's going to end up being like 800 pages. But I'm really loving what I'm getting down on the page. This is kind of my tribute to Dracula and Salem's Lot.
Mm-hmm.
As Salem's Lot was a tribute to Dracula, and they're two of my all-time favorite novels, and they probably what inspired me, in addition to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was my all-time favorite TV show growing up.
Yeah.
They probably what inspired me to write this. So I'm not really looking to write like to retell Dracula or Salem's Lot. Definitely looking to little nods here and there to pay homage to the past. So that's why I have it. Like I said, I'm delving into horror. This is my first attempt at full-blown horror.
Nice. Well, look forward to getting my eyes and hands on that chunky beast whenever it's ready. But great. Well, we've obviously mentioned King a lot already in this chat. I mean, and you're there with your Constant Reader t-shirt on and plenty of Pennywises and stuff in the background. I feel like I've already got a sense of so what King means to you and what effect it's had on your writing. But I think people who follow you on Instagram, they'll know you're a King collector as well as a reader. What is it about him for you that has taken you from just someone who enjoys his work to that, I don't want to say obsession because it conjures up Annie Wilkes and all that kind of stuff, but that next level of fandom? Like what is it about King that has given you that particular passion for what he does?
Well, first of all, if King drives into a snowplow near my house, I'm dragging him back. I might hold off on calling the authorities, and sign some stuff, make sure he finishes something maybe that I want him to work on.
Yeah.
Stephen King, I love and hate Stephen King. That's the thing. Like, I either love or I hate somebody. Like authors. Like, there are authors like, I either love them, and there's authors I don't hate, and then there's authors that are like in the middle. But like Stephen King resides across the board. Like we talk about fairy tale. I told you we wouldn't talk about it much.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you have that much passion towards somebody on every side, both love and hate, that they're doing something that sticks, is digging deeper than just other authors. And the same thing with music. Music is one of the things that can dig the deepest inside of a human being. I think the deepest. I so more so than writing or art. I know it's different for everybody, but I think music is probably, if you took a poll, would be the universal. That is what digs the deepest in a person. And for the bands that we're most passionate about, for me, it's Metallica. You love and you hate them.
Yeah.
It's weird to say, like, so Stephen King manages to do that to me. It's just, I think, it's how he makes you care about those characters, and it's how he creates this bar. So when he doesn't hit it, you're like angry at him, but when he does hit it or surpasses it, like you're like 11/22/63. I'm gonna steal this from when I was having a conversation with somebody from the Losers Club. We were talking about 11/22/63. He's like, when I finished, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he had this in him after all this time. And it's true. Like, to read something like that and be like, holy crap,
That'd be like Metallica releasing another Master of Puppets right now, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Metallica, I would say they're going through the motions, or like King. I don't want to say King's going through the motions, although if we talk about his later work, but to have that still in you, it's inspiring. It like floors me, right?
Yeah,
he's just not a writer today. We're like Robert McCammon, James Herbert, guys like these. The writers I really enjoy, but it's just something else to him that there's more. Maybe because like the way I connect to him as a writer, he's just different. He's just different. I'm not going to repeat that, but that's the truth. I'm sure you get it. I'm sure you have to be a writer to get it.
Yeah. No, I get it completely. Definitely. So I've asked all of the guests on this series to pick out one King release in particular to go in on a little more detail. And you've gone for Salem's Lot, which is an absolute class. You've already given her a shout out already. And we'll get on to that next question. But I was curious, like, did you have any other like honorable mentions that almost made your list, that were almost the ones you picked for this question?
I think you asked me for a backup download better. Yeah, it was probably 11/22/63 or Joyland. We just talked about 11/22/63. 11/22/63. Like, how's have that in it? Like, the ending blew me away. And Joyland is another one where the ending completely had me floored. Like, I'll tell a little story about Joyland. It was 2013. It was released, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That year, for some reason, I dedicated myself. Like, I wanted to read a book that was going to make me cry. So, like, I'm reading, like, Nicholas Sparks and, like, I don't know, like, every book I could think of that I would think would make me cry. Eventually, The Fault in Our Stars actually got me, like, one morning. Like, I finished it up. I'm like, I'm tearing up. I'm crying. But Joyland almost got me. Joyland almost got me a few weeks earlier. I'm glad it didn't, because I was in the car before work. I was just finishing up because I had some time. And then, I'm reading it and like, oh, I'm like, holy crap, like goes back to it. Like, can't believe he had this in him. Like, so Joyland. And one more has to go Revival, because that is probably his best horror that he's done. And I always consider New King 2010 and beyond for some reason.
Yeah.
Under the Dome. But that was probably that. I really enjoyed Revival.
Yeah,
those are my shout outs, my honorable mentions.
Okay, great. Well, let's get on to Salem's Lot then. So this is, I mean, you mentioned I did ask you for backups, but you basically instantly were like, I'm doing Salem's Lot and I will fight people for it. So, I've put in my notes, you claimed it with the hunger of a vampire with blood in their nostrils, which I wish I'd read before. I just muttered a bit before because that was quite nice, and now I feel a bit of a fool for not reading my own notes. But anyway, it's King's second published book from 1975. It's still one that a lot of people have at the top of their list of not only favourite King books, but favourite books. So, I mean, let's start with the big open-ended question. Why Salem's Lot?
Well, my favourite story of all time is Dracula. I think, I always say people, I respect their opinions, but I'll fight people over like who say Dracula is not scary. Dracula to me is still very terrifying. And you can trace the lineage from Dracula to Salem's Lot. Like King, I think probably says in the prologue, I'm sorry, the forward, that it was his Dracula.
Yeah.
So that was it. Like when I first started reading King, Misery was technically On Writing was my first book, because that was the advice I was given when I asked my friend who had published, like, you got any advice for me? So I'm going to try this out, and said, you got to read On Writing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend whose curriculum in college, because he was English lit, was based around On Writing.
Okay.
So both of them told me to read On Writing. But I had a friend, a huge Stephen King fan, and I told him I was going to pick up some stuff by him. And he said, you have to get Salem's Lot. Like, you love Buffy, man. You love Dracula. This is right up your alley. I went Misery probably because it was infamous.
Yep.
It was probably maybe that or The Shining or something like that. But after that, I went right to Salem's Lot, and that's where, like, I knew King was able. Granted, I didn't have much experience reading at the time. Like I said, I wasn't much of a reader up until maybe my mid-20s.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I knew King was on another level. Especially when the Glick brothers are in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Just that, to me, goes back to why King, why he resonates differently. To me, it's never with King the monster, but even though it's not the vampires, or it's not the clown, it's not the haunted house, it's the situations that you're in where, like, I can take myself and put myself in that situation. Gerald's game is one that really stands out about this, being handcuffed, like thinking about being handcuffed alone in the middle of nowhere with no one around. That gives me anxiety. Going back to Salem's Lot, the Glick brothers in the woods, I remember reading that and thinking about I didn't mean as a kid, but being as an adult, being lost in the woods. Is it the sun setting or is the sun already down? It's been maybe 2 years since I read it. But whatever.
Yeah, around that time, isn't it? That time of day.
Yeah. Just it's a terrifying thing to think about, and I put myself there. So that's really how King gets me. I think that scene is when I knew, I was like, I love this book, and I love this author. He's awesome.
Mm-hmm. So is that your favorite scene, or is there stuff that happens subsequently that pips it?
I think that really is what the catalyst for loving the whole book.
Mm-hmm.
There's the scene where I don't remember the guy who's digging the grave after the Glick boys.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert! I mean, the book's what, 50 years old now.
Yeah, let's not worry too much about spoilers for books.
If you haven't read it yet, read it and then come back to this, or 30 seconds. This. When the Glick boy's grave is being dug after the funeral, there's a sense of I forget the gravedigger's name, but it's just a feeling like he's being watched, right? Yeah, so that was unsettling. There's just a lot of unsettling things that don't have to do with vampires, and that's actually stuff I'm applying to my own writing. Like, if you don't mind me going back to Dracula, because it's all connected. Dracula appears in the very beginning of the book, and again, spoiler alert, but now the book's 150 years old, so
yeah,
this on you. And he appears at the very end. In the whole middle, there's this whole, like, which I could argue is maybe the most unsettling parts of the book, is where Dracula's not even there. So I mean, it's like all that foreboding, and I think King brings that a lot into Salem's Lot. Although I think Barlow is, and this might turn into a whole bunch of rambling. So Barlow's more involved in the book than Dracula, I think, is in Dracula. But it's all stuff like that I've taken from Salem's Lot and Dracula, I'm applying to my own. Like, it's very much like what's in the dark, and that's actually, I do have vampires. I will have vampires. I will have scenes that are very hands-on. But to me, it's more like It's not even like intentional. It's just what comes to me. It's very much like what is around us that freaks me out, and that's maybe why the being in the woods or being, like I said, with Gerald's game, being handcuffed in the middle of nowhere. The sun sets at night. I know there's a whole, another part of that Gerald's game that really is meant to creep you out, like what goes bump in the night.
Mhm.
But just that's what's unsettling. It's not to me. It's not about because it's not about the clown. It's not about the vampire. It's more about like I'm repeating myself, but you get the point. Like
Yeah. And how about the town itself? Because this is like the first King novel where he really tackles giving us a small town, building the town, showing us not just a couple of characters, but really giving us a sense of the whole place. Like how do you feel about Jerusalem's Lot as a town? Is it a stupid question? Is it somewhere you'd want to go? Is it somewhere you'd like? What sort of vibes do you get from this book?
I love it. Like King's a master of character development. I'm glad you brought up the town. Like when I go on rambling, just pull me back because that's great. But King's character development, whether it's Jerusalem's Lot, whether it's Derry, Midworld, to Castle Rock, and again, I think I'm stealing from the Losers Club with this. His towns are characters on their own, and it's the people that just does, especially with sales. I think maybe Castle Rock is a little on par with how much he's able to build the town through the lens of the people. And another, like, yeah, I'm gonna go back and forth between my writing and this book with King in general, horrors of humanity. Like he's showing how terrible people can be. Like horror isn't just like the vampires or the crazy dog or the haunted hotel. It's the alcoholism. It's the mom who can't take a crying baby or the person the wife having the affair with, it's all this stuff that is it adds the horror. So King and all this conversation will bring back to that question to why King.
Yeah.
It's layer. It's not just one-dimensional horror, which I said, going back to what I said about a big problem in horror is that it's very one-dimensional. People are so focused on the scare. I have beta readers right now, like people I trust to read the first draft, which is essentially a bag of garbage that I'll have to sift through later. But they're like, hey, you want to see if you look in this bag of garbage for me, see if there's anything in it you like? A lot of it is like, well, there's a lot of, character development, and, in the beginning, less horror, and I'm kind of like swinging the pendulum more. But to me, it's like, well, that's my mentality. Like, there's more horror than just what goes bump in the night. There's horror within us. And we see that a lot with King, like Percy Whitmore, Green Mile. Terrible fucking human being. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah, you can, definitely.
Getting explicit. Yeah, like King create some really terrible human beings. What's the one from The Body who appears ahead in
Ace Merrill?
Ace Merrill, yeah. No. Is Ace? No, Pop Merrill, I'm thinking. But yeah, Ace Merrill, you're correct. Terrible. And like going back to what you're saying, to what you originally asked before I went on the tangent. Jerusalem's Lot is a character because it's a town. A small town is in real life is a character because they always say I've never lived in a small town. I've lived in suburban America my whole life. But everybody knows everybody's business.
Yeah.
And not everyone's business is going to be great. So the reader should know everyone's business. Yeah. So King is, like I said, that's probably why he stands out above the rest, because I can just say, yeah, this is the town of Jerusalem's Lot. Here come the vampires. No, he has to do this whole.
Yeah. Another character I wanted to ask about, and it's one that, Salem's Lot is generally a highly praised book, but I guess one criticism I often see is of how Ben Mears, basically, and him as a character, and people not necessarily liking him. And there's always the joke, I think, my turn to steal from the Losers Club, there's always a bit of a joke that he was this kind of idealized hunk version of 70s King almost. Like, what do you think of Ben as the leading man in this one?
So when I listened to the episode of Salem's Lot, it was probably the first episode I listened to from Losers Club because it's my favorite book. I remember what they were saying about Ben. I remember what they were all saying about Ben, and at that time I had only read Salem's Lot once, so I've read it, listened to it 2 times since then. And so I went into it thinking like, all right, I'm going to pay attention to Ben because of what they said on Losers Club. I don't see it. Like, to me, he's not. If people said, well, who's your favorite antagonist, Ben would even cross my mind. So I guess he didn't leave like a strong impression. Like, I think Alan Pangborn, who's in 2 way lesser known books than say Salem's Lot, which Salem's Lot, I guess we could agree, is in the upper echelon of King. He would come to mind way before somebody like Ben Mears would.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just not memorable. What bothers me mostly in Salem's Lot is, and a lot with Stephen King, is like the development of the love story. Like, okay, I've always written under the guise of it's had to have happened to somebody in life, so it's not completely out of the door. Like, you can write anything, but like I feel like King's characters just like fall in love in such like a corny, like drastic, like quick. Like, he met Susan in the park, and then the next thing that like in love 2 days later. To me, that was my biggest gripe, and I guess I connects back to Ben because he's part of that relationship. But Ben individually, like I said, he's just like a non-factor to me. Like,
so who is your favorite character in Salem's Lot?
Barlow.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. Straker. I love Straker. I didn't like Susan. Susan or Ben? Suzanne.
Susan, yeah.
Susan. Callahan. I love Callahan's story arc. And how it essentially plays forward in King lore.
Yeah.
That I won't spoil. The English teacher, I forget his
Matt
name.
Burke.
Oh wait, do you have? Oh, you just your memory just this much better than mine, or you have notes?
No, I don't have notes. I just happen to I just happen to have a brain for names occasionally.
Yeah, and the child who's with Ben at the end. Wait,
Mark.
Mark Petrie.
That's it. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
I pretty much named all the characters.
Yeah.
I dislike all the characters I was supposed to dislike. Susan's mother. I like I said, Susan, I don't want to say I dislike. She's just kind of like Ben, where she's just there.
Yeah.
Serving her purpose. Yeah, I mean, like, that book has a lot of good characters that I guess, maybe except for Callahan, in the scope of things, I would never like point to them as a character that I really enjoyed. But now that we're focusing on it, I really enjoyed most of the characters in that book.
So you're a fan of the book, obviously. Are you a fan of the 2 previous adaptations of this one? And also, are you we're supposed to be getting another one in 2023. Do you have much hope for that? Like, where do the adaptations rank for you?
I never saw was it Rob Lowe?
Yeah.
I never saw the Rob Lowe one, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I even saw the original in its entirety. I obviously remember scenes, whether it's from watching it when I was younger or from being so infamous now amongst King fans, with Danny Glick in the window.
Yep.
Barlow screaming, or the scene in the coffin.
Yep.
So I wanted to watch it last year, but being an adult sucks, and it's like a 3-hour total miniseries, and I'm like, I don't. Maybe one day. I am excited for the upcoming movie, which it has to be coming out because of a tie-in.
Yeah.
cover. But then again, I was like, excited for Pet Cemetery. I was excited for The Dark Tower.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're due one where our excitement actually pays off and we're not disappointed for a change. It feels like it's been a while now. So I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm always hopeful with these things, but yeah, there's got to be a good tight adaptation in there that works, surely.
I wish Mike Flanagan was doing it.
Yeah.
I honestly wish Mike Flanagan was doing everything scary, but everything King. Have you seen wow, brain fart. I love the freaking thing too. Midnight Mass.
I have not. I don't have Netflix, so it's something that I will try and watch at some point, but I've heard only good things about it.
It's amazing, but I feel like he did it because he didn't get the right SALEM'S LOT. This is like, well, screw it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You can just see the King influences in his direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to the 2023.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not that.
Yeah. Okay. So last question on Salem's Lot. Just a very short, sharp one. I want you to give me a 3-word summary that would convince someone who has never read Salem's Lot to go and give it a try.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Great. Nailed it. Well, we are almost done, Jason. And thank you so much for your time. It's been a really great chat. But before I let you go, and I should point out this isn't optional. We're doing this before we finish the chat. But just to give you a heads up, we've got to complete the quickfire 19-question King challenge. So, like I say, it's not optional. But my only question for you now is, are you ready to give it a go?
Yeah.
Cool. So let's jump into it. So a bunch of quickfire questions. Generally, just tell me your answer. If you've got a particular explanation you want to give, feel free. But the more rapid fire, the better, I reckon. So, what was the first King book you read?
Technically on writing, but fiction misery.
Okay. And what was the most recent King book you read?
Sadly, Fairy Tale.
I'm tempted to ask you which Metallica album you think Fairy Tale is, but then that will deviate into another conversation about Metallica. But listen, okay. See, I like Saint Anger, so I
like it. It's just unfair question. No, they're all good. Fairy Tale I just didn't like.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you. I think I know the answer to this one. What's your all-time favorite King?
Obviously Salem's Lot, but I will admit that Green Mile would be a 1B.
Okay. And what about your all-time least favorite King?
Well, you think I'm gonna say Fairy Tale, don't
Maybe.
No, there's actually like maybe 6 books below Fairy Tale.
Okay.
Girl of Tom Gordon.
Okay, interesting. I struggle to get into that because I don't understand baseball, but on reread I got a lot more out of it. But okay, so that's interesting.
Maybe I'll listen to it.
Yeah, I've heard good things about the audio. What do you think is King's most underrated book?
Needful Things or Revival. But
okay.
I always say Needful Things. Like I've got on banters about it.
Mm-hmm. This one will suit you being a collector. What's your favorite King cover art?
So this was a little difficult because there's so much, considering he's had maybe like 50 editions of it or whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I've gone off first print covers.
Okay.
The Bizarre Bad Dreams.
Yeah. Okay. And what about
the American version? And don't want to sound like I'm bashing you UK people. The UK editions aren't that great.
No.
Later the other years.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what about your least favorite artwork?
The Night Shift hardcover, which is essentially nothing. It just says a print of, it's like a drop of blood. It says Night Shift.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, okay. What's the one King book you could recommend to anyone?
Green Mile, but can I just go back a second?
Yeah.
But the worst cover being Night Shift, although Bizarre Bad Dreams is the coolest first print, the soft cover of Night Shift with the hand,
the
eyes,
yeah,
has to be one of my favorite covers. So he holds one of my favorites and my least favorite
with the same book.
Yeah, with the same book.
Okay, So the King book you could recommend to anyone.
Is The Grey Mile.
Okay. And what's your favorite King adaptation?
The Grey Mile.
And your least favorite?
Shockingly, I said, granted, I haven't seen them all. And now that I'm reading, I'm about to say The Shining, because I did not like The Shining, but the last Pet Cemetery or the Dark Tower I didn't really consider those. Like, it's always been The Shining for me.
Okay.
But those other ones are pretty bad.
Which King character would you most like to have make a cameo in something that you write?
Ollie, so I can kill her off.
Nice. And which King book or story would you say is most similar to your style of writing?
I don't think anything old where he really focuses. I mean, he still focuses on the characters, but he does it because there's evolution in King. So I'm more how he did character development maybe in his older days.
Okay. And for this one, I want you to give me just one King book for each of these. So one King book to keep forever, one to read only once, and one to delete from existence.
So when you say only once, just like read it once and then
it's
just
done.
goes back on the ship. Okay.
Yeah.
SALEM'S LOT will be my keep forever, obviously. Bag of Bones will be my read only ones, although there are a lot. Which is weird because I'm actually planning to listen to Bag of Bones, so I kind of just negated my. I'm about to read these, but okay, whatever. And I'm not gonna say Fairy Tale for the ones to leave from existence. Dreamcatcher.
Okay. And then final 5 of this quick fire round is like an either or question. So simply just give me one or the other. So first of all, the book or the movie?
The book.
The Stand or It?
It.
So would you rather have a holiday in Derry or stay for a night at the Overlook?
Overlook.
Okay. Short story or a full novel?
Full novel.
And lastly, would you rather go for walkies with Cujo or have a weekend away with Annie Wilkes?
Have a good time with Annie. Not that kind of good time. But you know, if it means not getting my leg chopped off, then maybe I will have that kind of good time.
Fair enough. Jason, that wraps us up. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we head off into the sunset, where can people find you? Where can they find your work? Where can they get in touch with you? All of those kind of things.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm more active on Instagram. Jason Pellegrini Books on Instagram. And I think it's J Pellegrini 1983 on Twitter. You can find my books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Definitely. I don't know about, was that Waterstone? Don't know about, they're owned by the same company, but I don't know if they're available there. And my website, also Amazon Kindle, and my website, jasonpellegrinibooks.com. If you order from there, will get a signed copy delivered. I also have bundle deals that are discounted at checkout. And if you are one of those people who don't want to, give more money to the corporate juggernaut, which I'm guilty of, I do get more money out of in my pocket from website sales than say Amazon. They don't need.
No, they don't. So go to Jason's website, get his books, get them signed.
Sign book.
Yeah, perfect. Jason, thank you so much. That's been a lot of fun. Really looking forward to seeing your own vampire epic once it's done. And take care. It's been great chatting.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
So there we go. Huge thanks to Jason for his time. I think that was a great conversation and really terrific to go a bit deeper on Salem's Lot and of course find out more about all of the things Jason has got going on. You'll find the links to everything he mentioned in the description on this episode, so do go and check out Jason's work and support him. And as I mentioned at the start, you can sign up to my mailing list, which gets you some free short fiction from me just for signing up. And of course, you can pick up the Ultimate Stephen King Quiz Book from Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Links, again, are in the description. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend who might think it a worthwhile listen as well. Go and check out the rest of the series if you haven't done so far. And of course, be sure to come back again for another Constant Writer very, very soon. Ciao.